why do you think that comedy is kind of an underserved study or whatever in academia?
I think, well, this is going to be a very academic response. I think the question, in a way, is the other way around, which is the thing that I find interesting is, so we have a thing called comedy studies, but we don't have a thing called seriousness studies. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of normalize seriousness as kind of a default. This is the standard way things are thought. And then you have to move into comedy. And actually, my upbringing was kind of the other way around, which was comedy was sort of normal, and you had to very clearly signal your way into seriousness. So that's a long-winded way of getting to this idea that you kind of have seriousness and funniness as just two different discourses, both of which need to be signaled and neither of which is normal. But that one has been normalized, which is seriousness. And well, actually, I think it's connected to ideas of power, and it's to do with class. If you think about the systems of power that exist in society, if you think about the law, if you think about universities, you think about education, you think about government, one of the ways in which those things enact power is through seriousness. And one of the ways in which, say, if you go into a courtroom as a defendant, you're scared of in those places. And if you go into a classroom, you're scared in those places because they're so serious. And so there's this really, I think this kind of seriousness that we think of as normal isn't. It's an enactment of power. And I find that seriousness, personally, far more threatening than comicness. And so I think you have a history of kind of people using seriousness to enact forms of power. And this isn't really based on anything other than anecdotal, and I should explore it at some point. But I think, and this might just be in a UK context because we're obsessed with class, I think it's a class thing. There's a way in which working class people are much more comfortable with a jokey funniness, and that form of communication is seen as wrong in, say, institutions like education and the legal system and so on. And upper class people enact their seriousness in order to kind of demonstrate their power, because I do think that's really noticeable, and I see it in classrooms when I'm teaching, that in the corridor outside students are having a laugh and blah blah blah, and as soon as they walk in we have to, from somewhere, right, this seriousness appears. Right. And it's limiting, and it's really powerful, and as a teacher you're really aware of it because you just automatically have this power, and it could be, and you could say something or do something that really upsets or offends or hurts somebody, and you kind of need some of that because some of the discussion you need to work through kind of seriousness. But yeah, I've often thought it's the other way around, and we need to question how seriousness functions and the ways in which we're kind of controlled by that. It's what parents do to most kids. They might kind of control their kids by joking with them and so on. But if you've got a parent like that, the point at which they're serious with you, you're really in trouble. And so that kind of use of seriousness to kind of say, you have to do what I say now, is really noticeable. And anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying, so you have a whole history of this stuff. And universities come out of that system where, we're going to talk about serious things because they matter. And the second thing would be because comedy is really slippery. I mean, the other reason I think it's really hard. It's really hard to make sense of, because the whole point of lots of comedy is it has multiple meanings. And a tradition of the humanities, coming out of literature and then in film studies and so on, is trying to work out the meaning of a thing, a close reading of a book. What does this book mean? That question's hard anyway. When you ask it about a joke, that's really hard and sort of becomes a pointless question. So the kind of questions we're used to asking in universities don't really work for comedy. And so you have to end up kind of, exploring a different set of questions. So I think there's that reason as well, that the kind of tools we've got don't properly work for comedy.
Romance threw itself off the 30th floor. Get up,